Okay, when you see an attractive girl and you get nervous, or you get into conversations with women and you feel like you just can't be yourself, it's not because you're low value, it's not because you're unattractive. It's because you're viewing the interaction from the wrong lens, and you're one reframe away from effortless expression with women. I'm Joseph Smith, and I've been studying dating for 4 years now. I've approached thousands of women, and I help guys to level up their confidence and their communication. And a while ago, I had this pretty wealthy client. We'll say his name was Jared, okay? He was decently handsome and a good conversationalist, at least with me, on a Zoom call. But when he came to me, he said he had a massive problem with getting dates. He wasn't going on any dates at all. Every single time he went to a nightclub, every single time that he went to a bar, he was leaving empty-handed. Sometimes he'd get a date from a dating app, but these dates never led to second dates. And so I obviously knew something was wrong here. Just based off of the whole picture I was getting from the guy, he for sure should have been having some more success in his dating life, but that just wasn't the case. So we took a look at his interactions with women to see what was going on. And immediately it was very clear what was going on. Because when he was talking to me on a Zoom call, he was pretty funny. He was pretty interesting. But when he was talking to women, it was just a different world. He was a completely different person. What was happening was, it was like he was walking on eggshells. It just sounded like he was afraid to do any of the funny jokes that he was saying with me. What else was he doing? He was explaining himself to the girl, bragging about logical things, just giving straight up facts. Like, I went to this pretty good school, I do this job, so on and so forth. So he was explaining himself, he was walking on eggshells around women. And what this is, well, you have to look at in any human interaction, the person who's explaining themselves and the person who's altering their behavior to fit into the other person's frame, into their world, is always the person who has a lower status. So you look at a police interrogation. The person in low status is the person explaining themselves, getting interrogated, right? You look at a job interview. The person who's applying for the job has to convince the other person why they like them, and that puts them in a lower status position. Now, you look at a guy like Elon Musk. A guy like Elon Musk has what they call FU money. So he can say whatever he wants to say. He can even buy the entire social media platform. He can say things that are offensive, and he doesn't have to explain himself to anybody. But a corporate manager, if he said something that stepped out of line because, let's say, he had a couple of drinks and he decided to release some tweets online, he would then have to explain himself. Like, let's say his boss called him in. And so that's because he's in the position of lower status. So what Jared was doing was he was framing himself as the person with lower status before he opened his mouth. Because this was something that was happening subconsciously in his mind. And so when I see this, and I've seen this a few times, a lot actually, the mental frame that's going on here is, I need to convince the girl to like me. I basically am in a position of lower leverage where the girl has already proven herself to me just based off of her looks. So I'm just going up with her. I'm going up to her with the idea of she's already won me over. Now it's just a question of, okay, I need to convince her to like me. And so when you're in this position, you're very focused on yourself. You're very focused on what do I need to do to convince her to like me. You're never focused on looking at the girl, at her personality, at what she has going on. Is she good enough for me? So this makes you very self-conscious, and it makes you very performative because you're approaching this from a frame of, I'm not good enough already. I need to alter who I am for this girl. And so obviously this is not attractive to women. Women are not attracted to guys who are people pleasers. I know this is very novel information coming out today on the channel, guys, but a lot of guys need to get this really drilled in. Women are not going to be attracted to a guy who places himself in a lower status position. I don't think I've ever dated a woman who I didn't feel like I was above them in status. I just don't think I've ever dated a woman like that. Now, is it possible to date women who are higher status than you? Yeah. Do I think that it's a good thing? It's going to lead to a lot of good experiences, let's say maybe in the bedroom, maybe in the power dynamic. No, I don't think so at all. So I think as a man, you should always be in the higher status position with a girl. You should always at least assume that frame and then let the chips fall where they may. Okay, you should never be putting yourself in that position. Let's just put it like that. And so now what I want to do is I want to give you the 4-step solution that I gave to Jared, which completely fixed this sort of dynamic that he had going on with women where he was trying to convince, and it totally turned the tables around. And it took him from being very nervous and self-conscious around women to now just flowing with women, and it changed everything for him. And so the way that I discovered this was a few years ago. Early on in my journey with social skills and going out and talking to lots of women, I was in a period where I was just making a breakthrough. I was really just starting to get some success. And one night I go out to a bar. And during this particular night, I was talking to everybody. So I approach one group of girls over here. I approach this girl over here. I meet this one over here. And so what happened on this particular night was I met 3 different women who I found attractive and who were very receptive to me. And I could tell they had at least some level of attraction to me. And so the midpoint of the night rolls around, and I know that at this point I need to make a decision. I can't just have, short conversations with all 3 of these girls. I mean, I can't hang out with all 3 of these girls, right? I mean, I could, but these are separate women who don't really know each other, right? So I had to make a decision. Who do I want to hang out with for the rest of the night? Or at least try to, right? And so because I was in this position where I had 3 women who sort of liked me, I was coming from a place of choosing, of actually selecting, of actually thinking in my mind, which one of these girls is going to be the best option for me? And so because of this situation, this totally shifted my confidence to qualifying the women rather than being self-conscious. Okay, when you're in a place of choice, you're just so much more confident. You're so much more confident because you're no longer walking on eggshells. You're able to free who you really are. Okay, because maybe it's okay if one of these women don't like you. You have other options, right? And once again, it shifts your attention outwards on is she good enough for me? So that's step number one is you need to start the engine. Okay, in dating, it's kind of like flying a rocket ship. You need to have enough fuel, you need to have enough power and momentum to break through the gravitational pull of the atmosphere of the earth. Okay, a lot of guys, they study a lot of theory. They study a lot of, game online. But they're missing a huge aspect, which is massive action. If you're only taking action once a week, you're never going to get into a place of abundance. You're always going to be starting out at square zero. And it doesn't matter how good your game is. Like, you could have the best game in the world. Well, maybe not really. You could have some high level game. But if you're only taking one action a week, if you're only talking to one girl a week, I mean, it's going to be very hard for you to get into abundance. If I had sort of like low level or like mid level communication and confidence, I would blow past every other guy who has higher level game who doesn't take any action. Just by pure sheer volume and numbers, and just that's just how the universe works, right? You're talking to more women. And so that's what I would say. You need to leverage this volume game. Whether that's, okay, I need to talk to multiple women in one night, I need to start collecting numbers ASAP, solid phone numbers with women. Okay, and even if not, and so that brings me to step number two, because what you need to do in step number two is you need to understand what you want. So let's say you're not even in abundance. Like, let's say that you're on vacation and you're in Las Vegas, Nevada, and you're starting off at square zero. Because you might be asking me right now, well, Joseph, what if I'm really at square zero right now and I'm starting like today? It doesn't make sense for me to have this sort of frame where I am choosing the girl. Like, Joseph, I'm very desperate. Like, I don't care. I don't have any standards. And what I would say to you is this. Even if you're just trying to find a friend for the night, let's say, that's what you want to do, I would still have standards for the girl. Okay, because you still need to find a girl who's single. You still need to find a girl who's sort of, DTF that night. You still need to find a girl who has good logistics. She's not leaving on a plane 8 a.m. in the morning. She doesn't live 45 minutes away. You still need to find a girl who's attracted to you. You still need to find a girl who's pretty easy to get along with, right? So there's still things that you should be looking for. Most guys don't understand this. Most guys are just trying to see an attractive girl and they think that, oh, I need to try to win this girl over at all costs. When this doesn't make sense, and this is a terrible idea for a few reasons. And the biggest reason is time. The biggest reason is time because within a given night, you only have a certain amount of time to work with. Within a given lifetime, you only have a certain amount of time to work with. Okay, so rather than trying to just see an attractive girl and win over this specific girl at all costs, it's much more time efficient to have standards, to have these certain qualifications that you're looking for with women, okay, because it makes it so much easier. And let me explain how, okay? Like, for example, if I'm like a far right conservative and I go to, I don't know, my local art school, it's going to be a lot more difficult for me to find a girl who has a mutual attraction for me, okay, who I'm also probably attracted to, regardless of her physical looks, right? So there's other characteristics of a woman that are going to play a factor in the probability that this interaction is going to lead to somewhere. Most guys aren't thinking about this at all. They're not thinking in probabilities. So what you want to do is you want to pursue the women that have the highest probability of actually going somewhere, or you're just wasting your time, because we have an infinite amount of options, right? So have standards for what you're looking for, even if you're in complete scarcity, because there's infinite women in a finite amount of time. Okay, does that make sense? And so that leads me to step number 3, which is to hold this frame in your mind when you're going out. Hold this frame in your mind that I am looking for a girl who meets this criteria, whether that's you're looking for a wife. Okay, I'm looking for these characteristics in a woman. I need her to be family oriented, maybe religious. I need her to be Christian. I need her to have less than 5 body count, maybe like 3 maximum. All right, so you have this in your mind, and that shifts your attention outwards, shifts it onto the girl. Are you good enough for me? And that dynamic is going to play out in the interaction. Whether that's short term, okay, is she adventurous? Is she easy to get along with? Or else I'm not going to waste my time talking to you. You know, if you're going to be this difficult, I only have a certain amount of time. I'm on vacation. Okay, I don't want to waste my time. So hold this frame in your mind, and it's going to manifest in your behavior. That leads me to step number 4, is to never qualify yourself to the woman. Never be the guy who is explaining every single action that he takes, who's bragging to the girl, who's morphing his personality to fit into that girl's worldview. Okay, women sense this vibe, and it's incredibly unattractive. And the first time that I ever experienced this was one time I'm at an outdoor shopping village, and I see a girl from afar who looks pretty cute. And so I walk up to her and I say hi. Now, as I get like really close to her, I notice, hey, this girl really wasn't as attractive as I thought from afar, but it was already too late. I had already started the conversation. And it was clear for me that my sort of mate value, you know, was much higher than hers, or at least my status was noticeably higher than hers. And so because of this, what happened in this interaction was this girl was chasing me a lot. Okay, she was very nervous around me. She was talking very fast. She was explaining herself a lot. She was acting like she was interested in a lot of things that I was interested in, when it was clearly just her trying to win me over. And so what I experienced in this interaction was what it felt like to be on the receiving end of somebody changing who they are to fit into my frame, of being chased after. And honestly, she was like kind of cute, but experiencing this from her, it made me less attracted to her. You know, it was sort of a turn off for me, because it showed me that I was way out of her league. Okay, and I probably shouldn't even be pursuing this girl. And so that is what women are feeling when you're in that position of being the explainer. Okay, of selling yourself to the girl. So never do that. And this comes from having a healthy self-esteem. This comes from getting validation from other places, so that you don't have to get validation from women. I'm a believer in the fact that as a man, you should only get a tiny % of validation from women. or else your life comes crumbling apart. I believe that you need to get validation from men, from your friends, from your family, from helping other people. And then if you have an unhealthy balance of not having these other sources of validation, then inevitably you're going to seek validation from women. And it's not even going to be from a perspective of trying to win her over sexually, but it's going to be from a perspective of, I need this to feel like I'm safe in the tribe. So I believe there's an aspect beyond sexual scarcity. There's an aspect of social validation scarcity involved in that guys will seek from women if they don't get it from other sources. I hope that makes sense, guys. And if you're tired of not going on consistent dates with quality women, if you're tired of seeing attractive women at the coffee shop, at the gym, at the bar, and not being able to start a conversation, or you get into the conversation and it's not going anywhere, then I would like to personally help you to transform your dating life. If you'd like to learn more about how I can help you, click the link in the description, and there's a training video on my website that's going to show you how to start getting 1 or 2 dates every single week. That's all I have for the video today, guys, and I'll see you soon.